This week on the Sports Initiative podcast, I sit down with GB sprinter Danny Talbot. He discusses his experiences at Rio 2016 and London 2012, his training environment both in the UK and the US, as well as the challenges he has faced with injury as an elite athlete. This podcast was also recorded over the internet, so may sound a little different to normal. I hope you enjoy. So Dan, how are things?
Yeah, all good. All good. Just trying to get by in lockdown, etc. But yeah, everything's fine, thank you.
And then obviously we spoke a little bit before. It's a strange time for everyone. How's this affecting kind of your training schedule and whatnot? What are you able to do at the moment?
It is strange. For me personally, as soon as I had to come back from the States, so I actually trained out in Texas for most of the year, but I came home for two reasons. Firstly, I didn't really want to be stuck out in America. And the second reason is my girlfriend's a nurse, and I mean, just from the point of view where when I was injured for a couple of years, she was there every day for me and helped me through all the tough times. And then for me to kind of, I want to be there for her as well. So obviously, being a nurse in these times, she's gonna need a lot of support through the summer. So that was another main reason why I had to come back. But I mean, other than that, it's not been too different. Other than the fact that I can't use the track, I can still go and train on grass, and I bought myself a treadmill and some weights. I'm still able to train every day. So it's not been too bad so far.
Okay, so obviously the first question is, assume everything's okay with the girlfriend. She's doing okay considering the circumstances?
Yeah, she's fine. It's obviously a weird time for her because she would usually work on an elective surgery ward as well, and people just don't want to go in for surgeries that they don't 100% need at that time. So the whole hospital is obviously a little bit different. But yeah, her and all her friends are in good spirits and stuff, and just helping each other through it. And thankfully, she's healthy at the moment, touch wood. So yeah, it's all good.
Good. And so obviously, me and you kind of met, I guess, originally when at Bath Uni, and we're both doing the sports performance course there, which I guess is 11 years ago now, so quite a while ago. Yeah, quite a while ago. I guess the first thing for you, do you want to explain kind of what athlete you are, what you do, and all that type of stuff?
Yeah, so I'm a track and field sprinter. I specialise in the 200 metres and the 4x100 metre relay. Also run 100 metres because of that. It's just good to have that variance within your season. But yeah, so I started track and field when I was about 15 years old and just fell in love with it straight away. And that just kind of led to me wanting to do it professionally, and just the kind of classic story really of just dedicated everything to it, worked really hard, and then was fortunate enough to be able to become a professional athlete.
So I know one of the things we spoke about before is how you used to play football and you kind of gave that up because of people like me that used to give you a little bit of a kick for being so quick, if you like. I guess the first question is, when you were growing up, were you always quick? Were you always the quickest in your friend group, age group, all that type of stuff?
Yeah, from what I can remember, I mean, at primary school there was kind of me and the other football kids. Just, I think you're kind of naturally just, when you do one sport, you kind of do them all. And me and my friends who played football, we'd also kind of do the sports days together, and we'd always do whatever the sprint race was, whatever the distance was at the time. But I think I kind of really realised I was fast when I got to secondary school, and I was still playing football at the time. I still want to be a professional footballer at that time, but I would have won sports day and did well in the area, the West Wiltshire schools district sort of competitions. But then I remember really clearly my PE teacher kind of said to me one day, I mean, I must have been 14, so it's just before I started taking athletics seriously. He said to me, you're not going to be a professional footballer, so kind of stop having that dream, but you've got a real talent within track and field. And he then signed me up to do like a Saturday morning athletics club at Bath University. And I wasn't really competing at that time, but the training, I just fell in love with it. I remember the first time I went to the track, it was kind of like I'd met a person, then when I went home, I missed the track. For the first like 2 or 3 weeks afterwards, I just kept saying to my parents, I want to go back to the track, I want to train. And it was kind of then that I thought, yeah, I really just want I want this to be my main sport.
So I guess there's a debt of gratitude there to the teacher for being that honest with you at the time. I mean, how did you take that at the time when obviously someone's saying to you, you're not gonna be a professional footballer, which is what you want to do. However, there's a real possibility of you being good at this.
The football thing, I think at that point I kind of knew anyway. I mean, when I must have been in year 6, so I guess 10 years old, that I got an opportunity to like train with the Bournemouth Academy. Because at the time in the Southwest there wasn't a lot of academy football going on. It was either kind of Southampton or Bournemouth. I remember Bristol weren't really doing much then. And I mean, I did a few sessions with them, but straight away I kind of realised, right, I'm not going to be a professional footballer. It was always kind of a pipe dream more than anything. So when he said it, I was kind of like, oh, I kind of know surf, but like, I didn't take it too badly. But when he kind of really backed me for the sprinting, I guess it did give me a lot of confidence. And he's definitely someone, whenever I have to talk about my career or whenever people ask me about it, he's always someone I've always paid tribute to, just because he just supported me so much. I mean, going through into sixth form, as you mentioned, we did sport performance together. I remember at the time, I think you only needed 2 grades at A level, so he kind of went to my head of sixth form and the headmaster and kind of said, right, Danny only needs to do 2 subjects, and if he's allowed to have if he doesn't have to do the third A level and he gets more time to do his schoolwork in school, then he's going to have more time to train outside of school, which they then allowed me to do. So I've got a massive amount of gratitude towards him, because he backed me from the beginning and he made my life a lot easier through school.
I guess there's a real good support network there as well, in terms of having a teacher who's willing to support you that much and kind of back you that much, as you said, probably does give you the confidence moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you get a lot of stories about how sports people owe their PE teachers a lot. And for me, that's definitely the case. It's kind of a little bit of a cliche story, but honestly, but my parents and all of that, they were the ones who drive the competitions, and when I couldn't drive, they'd wait at Bath University for 2 to 3 hours. My sessions finished to drive me home, but definitely my PE teacher was a massive support to me as well.
So in terms of your, obviously you've gone into Bath Uni and you're doing the athletic stuff there. Who was coaching you at the time? Obviously you said that you kind of missed the track and whatnot, and we're really excited to go back. What type of training were you doing? What type of learning was taking place during that time?
So when I first initially started, it was more just kind of we did everything. It was just a club coach. I think it was actually the Wessex and Bath coach at the time, which they no longer exist. They joined the City of Bath and became Team Bath. But it was more just we learned everything. We learned kind of the basic skills of running, the basic movement patterns. We did kind of run over mini hurdles. We did long jump. We did try to teach us high jump. It was real just a general approach to track and field. The Saturday morning club was mainly to just give an introduction to athletes in the local area. It wasn't kind of right, these 4 kids are sprinters, these 4 kids are javelin throwers, etc., etc. It was more kind of, right, we're just going to put everyone together, just let them know what track and field is about, and just see if they enjoy it, and if they would then like to join the proper athletics club afterwards.
So when did you then begin to specialise? When did you begin to realise actually the 200 or 100, the sprint events are the ones that I'm best at, I'm going to be able to specialise in?
I think I knew that straight away from year 7 PE lessons, because we traded javelin, and I remember one time it's actually javelin so high. I remember one time we just learned to do it standard, and it twisted in my arm, and I hit the back of my head with the back half of the javelin. I think after that, I thought, yeah, no, like I'm quite fast. If I'm going to do athletics, I really like sprinting. So I mean, it was cool to go to that Saturday morning club and learn all the different things, but there was never a point where I thought I was going to do any other event than sprinting.
And so then obviously, as you've mentioned there, you kind of work your way through the school years, if you like, and then go into sixth form and whatnot, and you're looking at trying to train a little bit more. What did that look like for you in terms of your week? When were you going and doing classes? When were you training? What did your training look like? All that type of stuff.
So I'm trying to remember back. I think when I hit about... So I met my coach when I was 15, and he coached me for 10 seasons, 9 years. I think it was like 9 years, 10 seasons in total. And he was an international sprinter himself. So straight away, he kind of got me training probably 3 times a week from when I was 15 or 16. So that was in year 11. I think I probably would have trained like a Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday. And then when I hit sixth form, it went up to 4 or 5 days a week. So I'd started doing gym sessions when I hit sixth form as well. So I'd probably do sprint sessions on a Monday with gym on a Tuesday, then sprint again on a Thursday, gym Friday, and then run Saturday. So that was always after school, and my parents would pick me up from school and take me straight to the track. And I trained with a couple of people from within kind of Bristol, Bath area. I think there's a group of about 4 or 5 of us at that point. And then other than that, I'd obviously just, because I'd never have any time after school, I'd have to do all my homework at lunchtime or late night after training. Well, not too late, but it felt later then because I was younger, obviously. But so it was a lot. There wasn't as much downtime as what I would have wanted until probably my second year of sixth form, when I got to drop a subject, thankfully. But it was just kind of a lot of hard work either on the track or trying to make sure that my studies didn't fall behind, because my mum's just a classic mum where she's like, yeah, you can do your sport, but you also got to make sure you're doing your homework and your grades good.
Yeah, I think it's good that parents have that grounding and keep you in check, even if sometimes it does cause a few early rises and a few late nights. I was in a similar position. I remember getting up at 5:30 in the morning to get some homework done that I hadn't done because I'd been training the night before and stuff. So it's a good thing to have. So I mean, for you, obviously, I imagine when you're in sixth form and stuff, you're then kind of going into performance coaches, performance environment with other athletes. Did you mix at all with the university guys? And if you did, what did that performance group look like?
Yeah, athletics is quite a cool sport, really, because it's not like, especially in the UK. I mean, in the US, if you're in university, you can only train with university athletes, and through the age groups, it doesn't really matter who you train with. It's a sport where if you're fast enough, you just get in whatever race you're fast enough for. Not really, other than the fact that obviously if you're over 20, you can't do the junior competitions. But if you're young, it doesn't really matter. You can train with anyone, you can race against anyone. Obviously in football, you've got to be really good to step up an age group or two. But yeah, so within track and field, I trained with. Who was I training? There's a couple of older guys that we train with every now and then, and my coach was young. I mean, he started coaching me when he was 21, so I was able to train with him a little bit as well. And we'd also have the odd session where Jason Gardner would come and help with my block starts, because he was world indoor champion and good friends with my coaches as well. So I was exposed to a lot of different abilities. I was exposed to a lot of different personalities, which helped me a lot as a person as well, because as a kid I was really shy, and sport and trying to be good at sport really helped bring out my confidence and just my confidence to speak to people and really be myself.
And then in terms of things you learned, obviously you've mentioned there Jason Garner kind of came in and did block starts with you. Was there anything else that you learned during that time that has held you in good stead throughout your career?
I think the biggest thing I've learned is just to be myself and not to kind of worry about. I don't know. Like I said, I was just very shy as a kid, and I think being in the sporting environment, because I was always fast. So even when I played football, it was at that level it was easy for me to score goals because you just kick the ball as far as you could. None of us could kick the ball out of play, and then I'd be faster than everyone, and I could go up and just run past everyone and then score. And if I was running fast, I'd win races, and I think that just really, I don't know. I think when you watch sports on TV and you're young and you see all these confident people and you see someone score a goal and then they start dancing as a celebration, or you see Usain Bolt cross the line and he's beating his chest, and you just put these people on a pedestal. Oh, they're really cool. They're multi-millionaires. They're dancing when they're scoring goals. They're just cool people. And I think maybe me growing up in the southwest, and there wasn't many sprinters from the southwest. They're all kind of from the London area. I think I just became naturally quite shy and not sure of myself in that environment. But then the more I was winning, the more I was running fast, the more I thought to myself, yeah, I deserve to be with these people. It's not about who you are or where you're from, it's about your ability. And I think that just really brought out the more confidence in me, and I started to just enjoy being in groups more. I started to enjoy being watched by people more. So obviously, if you want to win the Olympic Games, you need to do that in front of 100,000 people watching you. So yeah, I think it just taught me to be a lot more confident.
Did you have any support with that in terms of like psychologists and stuff, or not?
No, I think it was just a natural thing, to be honest. I think the more I felt confident with myself, the more I felt confident just to perform in front of people and just know that I can do this, and I really enjoy doing it more than anything else, and taught me that I can be an individual and just enjoy it in any way I want to, and not to worry about how people might perceive it. I think it was quite a natural process to go through.
Interesting. The level of confidence you can get from, succeeding and doing well at something. So I guess obviously you've kind of come through that 6-1 phase, and as you said, at this point you kind of went into Bath Uni, you're part of that university program and whatnot. And I guess around this time you're competing in competitions, both bucks and whatnot, but then also probably nationally and internationally in terms of like under 23 championships and stuff. Just want to talk through the process of how that looked for you during your 3 years at university, and what type of competitions you were entering and how you did in those and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, so first of all, I love university. I tell everyone, I love school as well, to be honest, but university for me, I really enjoyed it. Even though my parents are from Trowbridge and I grew up in Trowbridge, I thought, right, I'm going to move to Bath University and go live on campus. And it was kind of a safe way to do it, because if I needed to go home, I could. But yeah, I loved it as soon as I went there, being independent, meeting new people and new friends who 10, 11 years later I still speak to now. So the whole process for me was great outside of the sport as well as inside sport. But yeah, the competitions, it kind of, again, our university is very different to a lot of countries around the world. We only had one university race indoors and one university race outdoors. Whereas when you look at the American collegiate system, they only really race within college competitions until the end of June, and then if they're good enough, they sign professional contracts and then can compete in Europe. But we only really had one university competition outdoors, and that was obviously bucks, which was great for me. I think I used to really enjoy the English schools competitions, so to then go straight into bucks and be in that team environment again was really good, and I think it helped set me up for just being in squads on the international level, because track and field is a very individual sport, and most of the season is you're, as a professional anyway, you're flying all over Europe to races, you do it to hotels, you don't see the city, you just see the four walls in your hotel room, and then you go to the track and then fly home, and it's all very individual, and a lot of people say it's lonely, but it's what you choose to do. So I don't really see it as your lane move. But going through BUCS was so much fun during a team, and it's just preparing you for the international championships when you're in a team of 70 as opposed to just travelling on your own.
And so I'm assuming you used to go with all the other Team Bath athletes to a place, and then you're all trying to compete and stuff. And how, as you said there, it is an inherently individual sport in terms of athletics. But how did you find that team aspect in terms of supporting one another, particularly maybe if someone's not done as well as they would have liked and you're trying to pick them up, or obviously everyone's trying to support you? How was that process for you?
To be honest, I enjoyed it a lot. University athletics is very strange as well, because you get a couple of different sorts of athletes. You get the athletes that are trying to prepare for the next stage of their career and using it as a stepping stone, which is what I was trying to do. I was so focused on being a professional athlete that I was going to this as, right, this is the first race of my season, and I'm just using this to get ready for the national championships and hopefully the international championships. And then you get the kind of student athletes that are kind of, not that they're not taking it seriously, but it's not their priority. So it's kind of like the sport is a kind of release from the university academic side. So it was a nice mix of serious athletes, but then athletes who saw it more of an enjoyable experience and more kind of a social experience to them. So again, that's just completely different to what you'd be used to in the professional side of things, and it made for a more relaxed team. It made for, if you performed well, you'd be celebrated more because not everyone's expecting to do great. So if you do really well, then people to kind of feed off it. But at the same time, it's nice because it's humbling, and you won't get kind of big-headed from it because, you've done well and people are celebrating it, but at the same time, they're more interested in their deadline that they're doing in some science books, and it's not the be-all and end-all for them. So it's nice that you get that kind of humbling effect as well.
Did that help you with kind of getting back to the grind after maybe a success as well?
I think so, yeah, but at the same time, the BUCS championship wasn't kind of my aim. It was my season opener, and it was just kind of right, where am I at in the season? What do I need to work on? But also because within track and field, it's really difficult to turn professional at a young age, and you get a lot of high quality athletes do the BUCS championships because they have to because they're scholarships, and most track and field athletes will go to university because they're not going to sign a multi-million title contract like you would in football, or if you're a professional golfer, you can just win a tournament at 18 and you're set up for a few years. So whilst it was kind of a season opener and you're just trying to see where you're at and what you need to work on, you could still, I remember 1 year Adam Jamili turned up to it and won the 100 metres in 10-1, I think, and CJ Uja the next year won 10-1. So whilst it's a nice season opener, you can still get the athlete who's going to really run fast, especially in the 100 and 200, when you can't take it too lightly. So I think your focus is always there, and then you always go back to training and work as hard as possible.
So obviously during these times as well, as you said, it's almost a season opener for you, kind of a gauge of all your winter training and all that type of stuff. And during that time, I imagine you're looking for selection to kind of GB camps or looking for national competitions and European championships and all that type of stuff. So during that period, from my research, it suggests that you did well in a couple of the European championships of the under-23s and got a couple of silvers. Do you want to talk through the process of kind of getting selected for those competitions and what they were like for you?
Yeah, I think that my first championship was the World Junior Championships in Canada in 2010, so that was our first year at university. And that was so stressful. That was because I'd never competed for Great Britain before, and I remember going to the British trials and the British Championships in Bedford for the under-20s, and that was probably about 6 weeks after the BUCS as well. And I just remember being so nervous. My mum, my dad, and myself drove up from Trowbridge, drove across from Trowbridge, and went there the night before. And I remember not sleeping. And then I did finally fall asleep, and then I missed breakfast, so we had to have a McDonald's breakfast because there was nothing else to have. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, where's my life? And I've just had a McDonald's, like, everything's falling apart in my world. And I thought, oh my God. And then we had the first round, and it went really well, and I felt really relaxed, and I won my heat. I thought, okay, my nerves have calmed down a little bit, and all these new feelings of, oh my God, I can make a world junior championship team, and I can go and represent my country for the first time. All these things going through my head, and we got to the final, and they can only take 2 to the world juniors, and there's 3 of us in the qualifying time. It was myself, Kieran Shedder-Davis, and a boy called David Bonner-Rinwell, who's actually a couple of years younger, but he was just really, really fast, and he was there with us. We were 19, I think he was 17, and then it came down to the final, and me and Kieran came first and second, and the relief that I thought, right, I've made my first team, I'm going to get the kit, I'm going to get my first vest, I'm going to go travel to Canada, all these emotions just came out, and yeah, it was amazing really looking back. It was a major stepping stone in my journey, and still to this day one of my favourite competitions I've been to. Unfortunately, we didn't get the batting round in the relay, which at the time was kind of common for British teams as well, so that wasn't great. And then I made the semi-finals of the 200, so it wasn't. I really wanted to make the final, but I think all things considered, it was a really good stepping stone to what I'd go on to achieve in future years.
So how did you manage those nerves? Obviously, you said there it's your first competition, first national one where there's almost something attainable on the line, if you like. And then you said between the first race and second race that your nerves and stuff had reduced. How did you manage to manage those, if you like? How did you manage them for the race? Because one of the interesting things for me in particularly the sprinting races is if you have a bad start, either you go too early and you get you get the chopper, or you go too late and you're losing ground. That's pretty much you done. So there must have been a way you've able to kind of maintain your focus enough to get yourself through.
Yeah, so I think it was mainly my coach. So my coach met us there on the day, and he really, my coach Dan Collins at the time, who was a student at Bath University and competed for Great Britain as well, and he just helped get into my head, and even just helped just made me realise that I've done a lot of hard work, and competitions are the part that you should enjoy. I mean, training's really, really hard. Thankfully, luckily for me, I really enjoy training. I enjoy all the hard sessions and trying to get better each day. But I mean, when you're doing all these lactic sessions and you finish your session and you're trying to not throw up, they're the moments where you go through all those moments to get to a race and kind of show off what you've done over the winter training months, what you've done through the season. And he kind of just, as best he could, just got in my head and made me realise that, I mean, I was still nervous until I actually got onto the track. But I think as soon as I started running, nothing else mattered. All I could focus on was putting one foot in front of the other, and running with good technique, and I couldn't control what anyone else was doing, so I just need to do my run. I think it's, even into my senior career, it's the anticipation of races which I find the hardest. I think once I'm on that start line and once I look around and I'm enjoying the moment, then I then relax and usually kind of get the best performance out of myself.
Of course, it's interesting in terms you said there, almost the ability to show off and show everyone what you've been doing is kind of a way of looking at it, a change of mindset rather than being something to be scared of, something to go, actually, this is a really good opportunity for me to just show what I can do.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I've always lived by, especially in my senior career, is I never want to go home from a competition and think, if only I could do that again. Unless it was so great and I enjoyed it so much and I want to redo it because it's positive feelings I'm getting. but I never want to ever come home from a race and think, I was so nervous in that race that I want to redo it because I didn't do my best performance in the day. And I don't mean running a personal best, because there's certain things you can't control, but as long as I can give the best performance that I could possibly give in that moment, then I know I can go home happy. And for me to be able to do that, I go to the airport, I enjoy the experience of flying, I actually don't like flying, but I enjoy the experience. I try and enjoy it as much as I can, and I enjoy the experience of getting to a new country, getting in a car with some random visa that's going to take me to the hotel. Like all of this stuff, I think in 20 years when I'm not an athlete, I'll look back and think, oh, all of this stuff was amazing, and I just think I never want to look back and think I want to redo that race because I didn't enjoy it. So that's kind of the attitude that I try and take into every race, really.
It's good. It's a good way, as you said, that grounding and humbleness to go, actually, I'm lucky to be able to come to Canada, or I'm lucky to be able to go and see these places. I imagine puts you far more positive frame of mind when you're looking to compete, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry.
No, go on, Karen.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's the way I just try and live life in general. I think, especially when you think now there's so much going on in the world that people, it's hard to kind of stay positive, but you just think, for me anyway, like I've had to come home and I can't see anyone other than my girlfriend, but then at the same time I'm doing more things with my friends now because everyone's at home and we're not kind of travelling all over the place and just getting more time. So yeah, hopefully I can just try and continue to stay positive in everything and just try and enjoy every moment that we're given, really.
And so then, obviously, you've done Junior Worlds, if you like. I assume that the following year you're then looking towards the European Juniors?
So that was the European under-23s, yeah. So kind of stepped up in age group. So the Juniors is under-20s, and then you got the under-23s. So yeah, I kind of went into that year thinking, right, my main aim is to go to Australia for the European under-23 championships. But then that indoor season, so the January and February of 2011, it just went way better than what we could have planned, really. I ended up winning the British Championships indoors as my first year as a senior. I think I ran the fastest time indoors for about 6 or 7 years at that point as well, and straight away we're like, oh, well, like, I've improved so much within sort of a 5-month period. I wonder where this can go. So I went back to train and started the outdoor season, and I'm a 200 metre runner, but my first race was 100 metres, and I ran the Olympic qualifying time for the 100 metres for 2012 Olympic qualifying time for the 100 metres, and then it kind of all changed for me. I mean, they then put me on like the front cover of Athletics Weekly, and loads of people interviewing me. They're like, oh, who's this guy? He's only 20 years old. He just ran 10:21, I think it was. I went to number 1 in the UK rankings above Wayne Chambers. And it all kind of changed, and I was aiming for the European Under-23 Championship still, but then it suddenly became a possibility that I could go to the World Championships in Daegu in South Korea. But that was actually the same time as the World Student Games, so I thought, right, if I make Daegu, then that's a bonus. I'm going to focus on the World Student Games and the European Under-23 Championships. And the season went on. I went to the European Under-23 Championships and I came 4th in the 200. I was really gutted, but we then came together as a team and came second in the 4x100 relay. And then, yeah, so that was kind of the main part of my season done. I thought, that's great, it's been a good season regardless. And then I was getting ready to go to the World Student Games, which was again kind of a bonus competition because it was so late in the year. But it was literally, I'd say I was about an hour away from leaving for the airport to fly to China, that I got a phone call from the head sprints coach of British Athletics saying, oh, have you left for the World Student Games yet? I was like, no, we're leaving in about an hour. And he said, okay, I think you should unpack because I want to take you to the World Championships in Daegu. And I was just like, oh my God, now, how was this? Last year I was doing the World Junior Championships and I was thinking, if I make the Olympics next year, that'll be a massive bonus, but that's not my aim. And now suddenly I'm at the World Championships the year before the Olympics. So yeah, it was all a crazy kind of roller coaster. But that year was kind of 2011 was sort of my breakthrough into senior athletics.
And so how did you deal with all that extra attention? Obviously, you said there you're on the front of Athletics Weekly. You're obviously getting a lot more calls, and I imagine a lot of people are trying to get hold of you and whatnot. How was that for you, dealing with that extra media attention?
Strange. I didn't really know how to deal with it. At that point, my confidence was still building, but I was still very shy. I think going to university was helping me as well, and meeting new people like that. But then the sprint world is something different. There's a lot of testosterone, there's a lot of arrogance, there's a lot of guys walking around with their headphones in, looking down, not giving you any eye contact, not wanting to be friends, and then you go into a call room with them and then they're looking straight at you but not saying anything and always trying to intimidate you. And I still wasn't fully ready for that, plus then all the extra media attention. It was, I think it's just something that you just learn to deal with though. It's something that I ended up enjoying sort of after it was happening. I think at the time I was so nervous doing any interviews, just making sure I didn't want to say the wrong thing and didn't want to be disrespectful to any of my competitors because they were asking me, how have you got to number one in the 100 metres in the UK? And I don't know, I'm just training hard and I'm just enjoying it. And I didn't want to say anything out of turn that would when I entered the relay squad wouldn't stand me in good stead. So the whole thing was just a massive learning curve, but it's kind of just on the job learning, on the job training, and just kind of just trial and error really. Just have one interview, hope if it goes down well, and if it does, you kind of know you're on the right track really.
So you didn't get much support in terms of like PR companies or PR people from GB Athletics or anything like that?
Yeah, British Athletics did help a lot. The media officer at the time was just really, really kind, and she just helped me through all the interviews. She was kind of, so if we do a phone interview, it was kind of like a conference call, and she would be there and she'd make sure the questions were like legitimate. They weren't going to ask anything controversial. But I think at the time as well, it was when the BOA had an Olympic ban for if you had failed the drug test, you couldn't compete in the Olympics, even though you were allowed back in the sport. The British Olympic Association wouldn't pick you for the Olympics, and it was at a time when Dwayne Chambers was running well. He had had his drugs ban and he was going to court for his appeals. He was going to the court for the arbitration of sport or something, trying to appeal that he could go to the Olympics. So I was getting a lot of questions like that, and I was thinking, wow, I've run one fairly decent, it's not even that fast, but a fairly decent 100 metres, and now I'm getting asked all these controversial questions. But the UK Athletics media officer was really good, and she helped me through a lot of it.
When you're this is quite a good time, I think, to bring this type of thing up. When you're being asked questions like that, do you ever have the urge to turn around and go, it's not really any of my business?
There's been a lot of times that I do that, especially we would get asked questions at stupid times. So, we would have a race, and then immediately after a race, be asked a question about doping in sport or whatever the controversial topic is. There was one time it was the Caster Semenya situation, and you'd be asked straight after one race that you could get a championship, and you're thinking, right, I've got to get back to the hotel, I've got to eat good, I've got to recover, I've got to warm down, I've got to get my massage, and you're trying to prepare for the next round, and then you get asked a question that has no relevance to you. Especially me, like if I'm in competition mode, like I barely speak to my family, like I'm just, right, this is it, this is what I'm here to do, I want to compete, I want to beat every single person on the start line, I don't want to be friends with any of them at this time, all I want to do is get on that track and beat everyone. And then you get back and you're asked a question, and there's been a lot of times where I've said, I don't really want to comment on this because I'm here to focus on myself, I'm here to focus on getting the job done. But I do also think it is our duty when you're outside of that environment to give our perspective of things, because people do look up to sports people, they look up to athletes, and they want to know the opinions, and it's down to us to make sure the integrity of the sport is kept at its highest, really. So I think there's a time and a place that we need to be accountable for the actions of athletes, but then you do get a time when you're just asking an inappropriate question at a stupid time, and you think, oh, I'm just here to run, like, let's just calm down a minute.
So obviously, with that in mind, what's interesting you said there is you're accountable. At some point, you need to be accountable. You need to have an opinion on it. How do you go about educating yourself on a situation? Because like the Casa Semenya situation is quite a complicated one with lots of different intricacies on it. Obviously, if you go via what's heard on the grapevine and stuff, it's gonna lead you down some odd paths. So, on these type of topics, are you aware that they're probably going to come up, so you educate yourselves on them, or is it that just because you're in the sport, you take a kind of keen interest in what's going around your sport?
So I'm a bit of an athletics nerd. So if there is a subject like that, I really enjoy learning. If something's in the news, then I don't necessarily try and learn everything about it, but I learn to the interest that I'm interested in. And but at the same time, that's a really, I don't think I've ever commented on that, because there's no right or wrong answer to that one. It's so difficult. At the end of the day, people's lives are on the line through, and livelihoods, careers are on the line through no one's fault. Like, no one chooses to be in her situation. Hers is such a unique situation that I will never be educated enough to be able to make a comment on that particular subject. So there's certain subjects that I will never even attempt to answer. But then when it comes to some of these things, I think where I said we're accountable, it's, for me, the accountability is, for me, I love track and field, and I'm not accountable for someone else trying to get an advantage when they shouldn't be getting an advantage, or I'm not accountable for what my rival does, but I am accountable for the fact that I want this sport to grow, and I want everyone to love it the way I love it. So if I can answer questions in a way that's going to put the sport in the most positive light possible, that some kid in Mexico might think, oh, I want to do track and field, then that's where I think my responsibility lies.
Okay, that's good. I think that's obviously a real positive message to have, and I think what's helping track and field at the minute is some of the top athletes at the moment are probably ones that are, well, at the moment at least, you look at and they are clean. I know obviously Usain Bolt was retired and stuff now, but you look at he's a clean athlete, which helps the image, whereas if you look at maybe times gone past, some of the very top athletes, it's come out subsequently that they were on stuff which obviously damaged the image of the sport, which is not as good, but it's, well, from the outside looking in, I guess it's something that's going to be a constant battle, and you just need to, as a sport, you want to have more role models like yourself who are going to show the sport in a positive way, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's, to be honest, without saying what people do is acceptable, but it's just a way of life. I think it doesn't matter what you do, when there's money on the line, people always try and get an edge that they shouldn't be. I mean, you could be playing cards and people cheat in Monopoly. You know what I mean? If someone's from a background where they've never had much money and they're trying to provide for their family, like there's always going to be people that try and push the boundaries and go to. It's unfortunate because it does have a ripple down effect, because kids will see it and think, well, why would I want to do that sport when it seems like everyone's cheating? But the fact is, not everyone is cheating, and the majority of athletes are clean. And when you just enjoy the sport as much as I do it, I just want everyone to realise it's the purest sport in terms of you just get from A to B as fast as you can, and every kid does that in school. Every kid loves doing that at school, racing their friends, and I just hope that they can see that it's really fun and really enjoyable as you get older, and train really hard as well. And yeah, hopefully a lot of people can see it, and hopefully it will one day be completely clean, and everyone will just love it for what it is.
Okay, so kind of going a little bit off this topic and moving forward, something you mentioned previously was that you got the qualifying time for London 2012. Obviously, moving forward to that, I know that you went to London 2012. Do you want to talk about kind of your experiences of knowing you were definitely going to go, if you like, and then how that was for you? Because I mean, we talk about stuff that's once in a lifetime, but for an athlete, it really was, because you're not going to have another Olympic Games that's going to be in England in your thing unless you're able to come up with some magical biological solution that takes you back a number of years. So do you just want to talk about what that was like for you, that whole event and that feeling of representing your country in the home Olympics?
The whole season was just awesome. It's funny actually, because even though we have qualifying times, we never know if we're going to go to a championship until we've had the British Trials and the British Championships. And I actually came fourth in the 200, and because I came fourth, I was like, I don't know if I'm going or not. And I ended up then going to the European Championships about 5 days after the British Championships. So I had a little bit of a disappointing British Championships, where I didn't guarantee my selection for the Olympics, and then had to pick myself up for it was actually my first senior championships that I've ever competed in, because although I went to debut, I only went for the experience. The relay coach didn't want me to run there. He just wanted me to get a feel for being around the senior athletes and what a senior championships was like. So then we went to Helsinki for the European Championships. And I think I went in ranked 21st. And then I won my heat. I won my semi-final. I got to the final. Oh my God, I'm in my first senior championships. I've made the final. And I've got a chance of a medal here. And then thankfully I came third in that championships, and that then gave me selection for the Olympics. But the head coach, Charles Van Conley, at the time said, "You're not running in the 200 at the Olympics, because you're not going to win a medal. So what's the point of you doing that when you can contribute to the relay team?" And I was like, "Oh wow, it's a bit harsh. Like I'm 21, and you just told me I've got no chance of winning a medal." But when he said it, I respected him. And he was a great head coach. He was very harsh. A lot of people didn't like him. A lot of people thought he was too harsh. But for me, he was all about performance, and for him to just say, "You're not going to win a medal," I was like, "Cool. Like, you know what you're talking about, and I'm here to be the best athlete I can be, and if you don't think this is going to further my development, then like, I'm on board with you." And I trusted him, and he then ended up selecting me for the relay on the third leg. And yeah, the whole Olympics was amazing. It was, at the time, it was the best and worst 15 minutes of my life, because we went onto the track and there was 80,000 people screaming for us. The most surreal moment was when Christian Malcolm was on first leg, and he came up on the big screen and introduced the Great Britain in lane 2 for the heat, and then we had Jamaica, and Blake was on my leg, and the crowd was going wild. It was so loud. I've never had a crowd as loud as that, and so it was the best feeling in the world. And then I get into my position. I see Dane Chambers running at me. He was on second leg, about to pass me the baton. I get out, get the baton, then having the best leg of my life, and then me and Adam didn't get the baton through. We exchanged it about a metre outside the box. Adam finished the race. We came second behind Jamaica. We would have qualified for the final, but then on review we passed the baton outside the changeover box, and it was crazy. It was so heartbreaking, because I was 21, Adam was 18 or 19 at the time. We were sharing a room together. We got back to the room. We were getting so much abuse on Twitter. We just had to turn our phones off, because we thought, "Oh my God, this is horrible. We're kids at the Olympic Games, and we're suddenly getting abuse from people that we've never met before. Adults who are like twice our age just sending abuse at us. We thought, wow, this is crazy." So yeah, it was, even though it didn't go well and there's times that it wasn't that nice, I still wouldn't change anything, because that home Olympics was just incredible, and there's so many positives I could take from it. And although there was one night that I didn't enjoy myself, the rest of the whole 3-week experience was the best in my life at that point. So there was still so much I could enjoy.
So obviously, I imagine kind of when you're doing the 4x1 or 4x4, it's a little bit different to how you're warming up, because obviously you're with a team of people compared to being by yourself. How was like kind of the warm up in that situation? In that situation where you're preparing to come out, you've got your race in however long. What type of things you do? What are you doing? Do you talk to one another? Is it by yourself? What does that look like?
So yeah, the relay is a strange dynamic because we spend all year on our own and we're trying to beat these people, then suddenly we're a team. But yeah, the relay warm-ups kind of just consist of, we come together at the beginning, we do a few handover drills, we jog around together, just to get ready for the team aspect of it. And then it's strange because your headphones are on and you're doing your individual warm-ups, because we all have different coaches, we all have different warm-ups, we have different routines to get ourselves ready. And then we come together. Well, there's a call room as well, so we go into a call room before the race, which is usually about half an hour before the race, where you get all your bibs, you put your number of bibs on, your main bibs, you get changed before you go out onto the track. So we come together about half an hour before the call room, so about an hour before the actual race, to do the last preparations, the last changeovers and practice before we go into the call room. But there's a massive period where you're just on your own. And it's really strange because you're looking over to make sure your teammate's ready, but then you're not used to doing that because you spend the whole season warming up on your own. It's definitely a different experience, but again, I absolutely love the relay because it is the only time when we come together, especially when it goes well and you get all hyped and you're in that team environment. And at the moment I'm watching the Jordan documentary, and you can just see when they're doing well how amazing it is, and you'll notice that as a team when you come together you celebrate as a team, and it's nice.
When obviously I'd imagine, like you said, you're in that call room and your stuff, you're ready to go out, and at that point you're looking around and you've got, as you said, Johan Blake, was Bolt.
Not in the heat, no. But there was, I can't even remember who else in the race. I just remember Johan Blake was on my leg, and I just thought, oh my God, I went to second fastest person ever.
So for you, how do you, like, as a team or individual, set yourself up to go, I'm not going to be in awe of the people that are around me, I'm just going to focus kind of on my job or what I can do here?
It's never been anything we've spoken about. When I've been in a relay anyway, where we've spoken about your position, for me, I think I mentioned it earlier, like, once I'm on the track, that's it. I don't care who you are, like, I'm here to do the best I can do. And although I want to win every single race, I'm also very aware that I can't control anybody else. So I want to go on the track and beat absolutely everyone, but if I'm racing Usain Bolt and he breaks the world record, I've got to put my hands up at the end of the day because the better person won on the day. But as soon as I step on that track, I don't really care who you are, I don't care what you've done in the past. I'm here to do the best I can do, and you just got to run well to beat me. So that's the kind of approach I took, and that's kind of what I do within the relay situation anyway. Whether it's a team event, I can only affect my 100-meter split, which tends to be the third leg, but that's all I can affect. So everything that goes on around me, for me, doesn't really matter as long as I'm doing what I can do in my specific 9 seconds of running that flying 100 meters.
And can you, in that situation, can you feel how the race is developing, or can you see if stuff's going right or wrong? So be that if you're looking at someone on the first leg and go, actually a little bit behind here, or they're miles ahead. Or equally, the example you used there with you and Adam, are you able to see that it's going to be tight as you're about to hand this over, or is it just something that goes quickly as you're going on?
No, you can definitely, it's a strange one because you kind of, for me anyway, I block out everything that's going on other than the race itself. So, I can't hear anything when I'm running at all. Like, obviously I know there's noise there, it's loud, but I wouldn't be able to make out anything. It's just the people there to me. Because I got focused in so hard of when Dwayne Chambers is running down, enters the changeover zone, he then shouts hand. And you've got 80,000 people screaming, and then you can just zone in and hear one person shout hand. So you've got to be that kind of focused. So for me, that focus starts as soon as we get on the track, and I've definitely got a sense of how the race is going, and when me and Adam weren't going to pass it in, it's hard because I'm trying to maintain my speed and really trying to get to him, but at the same point, not trying to try too hard because I think, oh my God, he's going to run out the box here. So yeah, there's definitely a sense of what's going on, and you're very aware of what's going on.
And then obviously you've mentioned there it's a heartbreaking time for you and for him, a difficult time in your thing. I think the stuff on social media, I think you probably did the right thing in terms of turning it off. I think I've listened to watched the Michael Jordan documentary similar to you, and when you get that much intense pressure on you, I think sometimes the best thing you can do is to shut it out and almost not engage with it at all, because I don't think you'll ever win. How did you kind of come out the other end of that? How did people support you, or how did you motivate yourself? Because I imagine, although you're 21 and whatnot moving forward, that could be quite a detrimental thing moving forward for you if you haven't got your head in the right space from that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really bad, but I think the fact that there was a period of, it was from about 2010 to 2015, in all those championships, Britain weren't getting the batting round. And I think, as hard as it was for us, it was almost just like, oh, Britain's done it again. So it wasn't kind of like, it was really, especially because it was Dwayne Chambers and Christian Malcolm's last Olympics, and we would have come third in the final. Someone in the American team failed the drug test as well, so he would have been upgraded to silver. So he would have been an Olympic silver medalist right now. But as hard as it was for us, I think people were expecting us to drop the baton. And not that we were expecting to do it. We didn't go into a race thinking we expect to do this. But there wasn't kind of like that real disappointment of like, this is the first time it's ever happened. I think it kind of helped in the fact that teams in the past have dropped that, and they're still members of that team within the team, and because they helped us through it massively, they were there to console us. And I mean, we were alive for like a couple of days, but you just learn through all the ups and downs. Your family will always be there for you. Your friends will always be there for you. The people that matter will always be there for you. And try not to get too deep and too depressing. But at the end of the day, in like 200 years' time, no one's going to remember we even here. So everything that happens doesn't really matter unless you enjoy it. So, I mean, you're not going to, I don't know, as long as you just try and enjoy every moment that you have in life, that's all you can do, because you're not going to live forever, so it doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah, I think it's a positive message. We'll move on from there now. I guess obviously, having spoken to you and intermittently over the last few years, I know that you kind of made a move from University of Bath up to Loughborough, and then obviously, as we spoke about earlier, you kind of fluctuated between here and Texas, right?
Yeah.
Talk through that move. Kind of what was your thought process? When did it happen? Why did you do it? And why have you added kind of the American collegiate system into your training season and competing season and whatnot?
Yeah, so I stayed with my coach Dan Cousins until the end of 2015, and in that time I won a Commonwealth Games medal. Was British champion, made World Championship team. I ran 20.27, I think, in Beijing at the World Championships in 2015. But there was a lot going on where I just wasn't that comfortable thinking, right, I'm going to be able to really progress in the way I want, in the way I want to. I think I just didn't have the confidence that I was in the right situation, and I'd also been in Bath for such a long time that there's a part of me that just needed something new. I didn't really think going into the Olympic Games in 2016 that I could just do exactly the same thing and then suddenly be where I wanted to be. So in January 2016, I decided to move to Bengt Lundqvist. He's a Swedish coach, but he was training in Loughborough. He was a British Athletics employed coach. And I started training with Richard Kilty, Harry Okunzariti, David Amorige, Tom Summers. It was a group of about 5 or 6 of us. And training with Harry and Kilty in particular, both being really high level 100 meter sprinters, really helped me progress. And yeah, that season I went into it with a completely fresh mindset, learning new skills, learning new techniques, new everything, really new training methods with Benki that thankfully it paid off, and I made the Olympics and ran 2 PBs there. Again, I was desperate to make the final, but I think I finished 10th and just missed out on the final. And yeah, I could just look back on that season. I think it was a good move to move to Loughborough.
And so, as you said there, obviously you made the Olympics at Rio and stuff. How did you find those in comparison to London? Obviously a little bit more senior, a little bit more experience, understanding of what they're going to be like, probably slightly different weather-wise, but how was that for you?
I actually preferred Rio. I think in terms of the Olympic Games, it wasn't as good. The crowds weren't as good. It wasn't as busy. And London just put on an incredible show. But for me, I think I was too young in London. Like, I remember just running around the village. God, it was like a holiday break. We saw Arsene Wenger in the village with the French team. They obviously brought him in to do some sort of like motivational talk, and we were like, oh my God, it's Arsene Wenger. Like it was basically where it was still just, I think we were just a little bit too young there. I say that, but Adam ran really well in the 100 as well. But in my opinion, I was too young anyway. And in Rio, I was just a lot more ready for it. I was doing an individual event, which I didn't get to do in London. And I think just the fact that when I changed coach as well, and I did it halfway through the winter season, and a lot of people are like, oh, why can't you change the coach? You've just done a PD in Beijing. It's a bit strange for him to do that. There's a lot of like questions as to why I was doing things, and I think the fact that I went there, performed well, I really enjoyed it. I just kind of vindicated my decision, and I can look back on that season and think, yeah, the Olympics were great, and for me, I enjoyed it a lot more than London.
So obviously that's kind of still where you're based at now for majority of your training, I'm assuming?
Well, through the summer season, I've actually changed coach now. So after 2017, we obviously ran really well. In 2017, we won the World Championships in the relay, and that was actually pretty much the last time I'd raced healthy, because I then had a really serious ankle injury, which actually started just before the London World Championships, and thankfully I managed to get through that and run well. But in the October, I then had surgery.
So what was the injury, if you don't mind me asking?
It was the FHL tendon, going from my ankle to underneath my foot was all like really blocked up, and just really, I can't really even describe it, but it just wasn't looking good, and they had to go in and kind of scrape all of it away and just clean it up basically. But then there was a lot of complications in the rehab, and the rehab didn't go well at all. And then in April 2018, I had to have a second surgery, which then just completely killed that season. Because I was meant to go to the Commonwealth Games, and I ended up watching the hospital bed actually. I watched the 200 metre final of the Commonwealth Games, which I obviously thought I was going to be in and be competing well in and trying to win a medal, to watching it in a hotel bed, so a hospital bed, about 20 minutes before I was going into my second surgery. Just thinking, oh my God, this is crap. Like,
what was that like? What's that feeling like in that situation?
It was horrible, to be honest, but there was a lot of optimism, because that surgery didn't go well and I just couldn't run from it. I'd actually flown out to Germany to go and see Dr. Müller-Wohlfahrt to see, because he's meant to be like the magic doctor, and footballers go to see him, a lot of athletes go to see him, and he couldn't do anything to help it either. So I thought, well, I'm going to have to get surgery. But there was optimism at the fact that, right, I'm finally going to be able to get over this now. But then watching it, knowing I'm just about to go into surgery and I'm not going to be able to race for the rest of the season. Yeah, it was really hard. It obviously wasn't nice, and a few weeks later I had to spend my birthday in Bisham Abbey Rehab Centre rehabbing my ankle as well. So there's a lot of moments where that season where it just wasn't enjoyable, especially the fact that I couldn't even then go and race at the end of the season. So yeah, that was a tough season really, and that kind of led to 2019. I had a lot of niggles trying to come back, and I mean I had one race in France, but I wouldn't even really count that as a comeback race because my ankle and my Achilles were still pretty sore at that point. So although I raced, I don't really consider that a proper comeback. So yeah, that kind of led me to the end of 2018 thinking that I'm just not really enjoying being in Loughborough. So I just saw it as this is where I rehab. So I made the decision to go and train with Coach Vince Anderson out in Texas. And yeah, I've been there since, and then come back to Loughborough in the summer season just for the European season. Really, that's where all the races is. So it's nice that I've got this base through the summer really.
And is there a disparity between what happens over here with the training at Loughborough to the training over in Texas?
The biggest thing I think is, without being rude, I think we're spoiled in the UK. We get a lot of funding from UK sport, and over in America, like they can't really have a proper funding system like we do because there's so many people. They don't know who's going to be running well for them. The rest of them just can't get on with it. They train where they can. All the coaches are professional because they have to make money as well, so there's no funding system. And the biggest thing I've learned is, in my opinion, the athletes just want it more because they have to perform better. They have to perform well because they've got a country of 300 million people to choose from. Obviously, not all 300 million people are athletes, but they've got such a big talent pool that they have to perform so well to be able to represent their country. Whereas over here, we kind of know you're always going to get people come through, and you're always going to get youngsters come through and upset the older generation and upset the so-called star athletes in the UK. But over here, you can kind of get 70% of the Olympic team next season, whereas over there you can probably guess like 25% of the Olympic team. So there's just a lot more of a competitive drive out there, I think.
And is that rubbed off on you at all? Have you taken anything away that you go, actually, this has been a real benefit to me?
I think so, in terms of just my progression with my strength and conditioning, and my progression with my specific condition around my ankle is a lot more intense. There's no holding back and being nice and safe. I think in the UK, they have to I don't know the best way to describe this, but it's almost, there's a culture of just being safe, and there's a culture of, whether it's physios just being like, right, this is my job, I'm employed here, I don't want to mess this up. Or it's a case of, right, we have to protect certain athletes, we have to wrap them in cotton wool, and we have to protect our assets, sort of thing. Whereas out there, it's just kind of like, right, you're not going to get the work done, you can't, there's no chance of you succeeding, because, I mean, I was watching the indoor NCAA before it got cancelled for the coronavirus, but some random guy just ran 20.5 indoors, and that's the equivalent of running about 20.1 outdoors, and that's just some random college kid just run a time that would place in top 10 at the World Championships. There's just always people coming through, and you just need that drive and competitiveness, and just I'm going to get this done, and there's no two ways about it.
I guess the next question is, where are you in terms of your rehab process or your training process, and how is the ankle? How are you looking moving forward? Obviously, it was meant to be Tokyo this year. It's going to be to next year. Where are you at the moment?
At the moment, it's all been going well. I mean, I've been in a lucky situation where I actually haven't missed one training session this whole season, so I'm back to being full strength. The ankles are stronger than they've ever been for all the rehab I've done in them. And to be honest, Ray, I'm just ready to race. Like I've been ready to race since March, and I was actually meant to start racing in March, but then my first race of the season got cancelled within the week of the race because of the pandemic. So yeah, it's a weird one because I haven't raced properly since 2017, and I was expecting to have done about 4 races by now, and then it's just kind of like another season where I'm not going to be able to have a full season. I mean, hopefully there's going to be races towards the end of World Athletics have just put out a bunch of races that they're planning to have go ahead in August, September and October. So yeah, hopefully that will happen. But yeah, for me at the moment, I'm in a good place, and I've been training really well, so I'm just kind of hoping that we can get a few races in.
And obviously, I know it's hard to say without obviously racing stuff, but timings wise, would you say you're back to where you were when you were competing at World Championships and Olympics and stuff?
I'd say I'm about sort of 95% to where I need to be. A time trial the day before I flew home to the UK, we did a 180 time trial, and the time was equivalent to a decent 200 metre time, but it's hard to say just because it's not competition, and you're always a little bit faster in competition, and maybe it's into a headwind as well, but that gave me a lot of confidence to say, right, I'm very nearly back to where I want to be.
Okay, and then the question for me, and this is, if you could talk through it, it'd be really good. Winter training is known as rough ride for you guys in terms of, as you said earlier, trying to increase your lactic threshold and all that type of stuff. Could you talk us through what winter training looks like, what your daily or weekly, monthly schedule looks like during that period, and then if possible, give examples of the type of sessions that you would do?
Yeah, so with my new coach, we don't try and deviate too much from what we would do in the summer. So all year we stick to the same kind of weekly plan in terms of day 1 will be accelerations followed by a gym session. Day 2 is the endurance session. Day 3 is kind of like a active recovery day where we do some circuits, we do some movement work, and we can have like a 15-minute jog. So day 4 we then do accelerations in gym. Day 5 back to endurance, and then day 6 will be sort of like a bounding session, an explosive session, but we do a lot of reps for that to keep the endurance up. So we do bounding over 90 meters, which if people have ever done it, it's kind of brutal, especially in the hamstrings. But we're doing maybe six of them. But yeah, the endurance sessions, they vary. There's just there's a few different types of them. So the real hard ones will be sort of, it really depends. So for me, the hardest ones would be running up to like 300 meters, but then they change depending on how many reps. So if we're doing more reps, it will be a shorter recovery and a bit slower. We want it to be a fast endurance session. We might do a 300, a 250 and a 200 with 10 minutes rest, and it's pretty fast. So I would probably actually find those ones harder just because the intensity is higher. Like another example of an endurance session would be sort of doing 150s off 2 minutes rest. So you just about get your breath back, and then you've got to do another one, and we do kind of like 6 to 8 of them. But then my favourite sessions would always just be like the sort of faster speed endurance types, so kind of a mixture between the speed and the endurance sessions, where we'll do sort of like 120s with maybe, instead of having a really long rest of 10 minutes, we'll have 6 minutes. and that's kind of like the real high intensity work.
So, in your plans and whatnot, do you ever kind of reenact a race day, if you like, or is it always looking to kind of periodize your training loads and all that type of stuff?
No, so the main purpose of it is like a big accumulation effect. It will just really pick up over time, and then 3 months into training, you think, I don't even know how I've got fit, because you've realised that all the work kind of blends into one. But yeah, we do kind of do time trials where we do a one-off run. So like I was saying just before I flew home from Texas back to the UK, we did a 180 time trial we do that out of blocks, and then someone sets us off, so it'll be kind of reenacting a proper start. But they're not too common. They're just kind of to see where you're at, what you've got to work on in training. And then my approach to competition is always, the races are all practice. There's two important races which I see as, right, this is what I've got to get ready for, and that's the British Championships, which is the trials for whatever championship is that year, and then whatever the championships is, either European Championships, World Championships, or Olympic Games. So they're the two competitions I focus on, and all the other races for me are just kind of practicing different things, whether it's my first 30 metres coming off the bend onto the straight or the finish. All the other races within the season are practicing for those two key competitions.
And then how much ownership do you get of your training schedule and stuff, or if there's a particular area that you feel like you need to work on compared to what your coach feels like you need to work on? How much ownership and dialogue do you get around your training schedule?
Well, I kind of, like, I will say this is what I think I need, but for me, like, I just trust him completely. Especially this new coach I've gone to, he's really renowned in the sprinting world. He's coached a lot of great athletes. And for me, I just put all my trust in him, because if I wanted to change the program, I could just coach myself. I've not changed my life completely, moved away from my girlfriend and my family. Like I said, the coaches out there are professionals, so I'm not paying him money for me to then tell him what I think I need. I'm putting all my trust in him, and yeah, hopefully I'll get the results from it.
And then moving forward, obviously, I assume you're looking to try and qualify for Tokyo 2021 now. How does that look like for you in terms of, have qualifying times been set? Has it adjusted because of COVID, which I assume it would have done to a degree? And yeah, kind of, what's your process? What are you looking to do in the run up to Tokyo?
Yeah, so that's definitely my aim, and obviously I'll go there to be as competitive as possible and try and come home with 2 medals, both in the 200 and the 4x100 relay. Especially in the relay, obviously we won the World Championships in London, so I think we can go there and beat America. I mean, when you look at it, they've probably got the 3 fastest men in the world, but I believe we can beat them, and hopefully I'll be able to come away with the 200 metre medal as well. But I mean, it all kind of starts now. For me, coming back from injury, having more time is actually a positive for me. I get another full winter with my coach. I get to use this year, if we're lucky enough to have races, just to get back into racing, because I haven't done it for so long. So I'm hoping to have a couple of races sort of in September time, and then just go straight back out to Texas and start working for next year. In terms of qualifying, it's probably the 200 metres in the UK is probably the hardest event to qualify for, because it's just so the talent pool we have now is just so deep. We've got 5 or 6 guys that are all capable of running under 20.2 seconds, and the qualifying time is 20.24. So yeah, it's going to be difficult, but it's almost an advantage as well, because if you make the team, then you know you've knocked out 3 guys that can make the final of the Olympic Games, and if you make the team in Britain in the 200, you know you should be in the final of the Olympic Games and challenging for medals. So it works in 2 ways.
And again, have you been to Japan or anything before culturally? Have you experienced what it would be like over there?
Yeah, so the World Relays last year were actually in Yokohama, and which is where our holding camp's going to be. So we actually got to go to the track where our preparation camp is, and just got to walk around the town that we're going to be spending 2 weeks in. So yeah, thankfully we've adapted to that. We kind of know what it's going to be like it's always harder to go from west to east as well. So we kind of learned how to adapt to the time zone. When you go from the east to the west, it's much easier to adjust to it. So going the other way, we're kind of learning all that. We're learning about food, what we shouldn't be eating. Just how we react to the long haul flight going towards the east of the world as well. So thankfully we had that kind of preparation last year.
When you're looking back over your career now, and obviously hopefully you've got a few more years left in the tank as well, is there anything you look at from your first Olympics in London 2012 to hopefully Tokyo now where you go, actually I've learned or progressed a lot in this particular area?
I think I've progressed so much in my psychology. In 2015 I started working with a psychologist, and it's one of the best things I've done. I meditate. I try and meditate every day. And that just really helps me just stay in the moment and just realize all I can do is the best in this moment. And that could be different. Like in one race, it's just going to be different to the next, because I could have had really bad travel to a competition. I could have had a really bad night's sleep the night before. I just shared a room with someone that was snoring all night. I could have got to the warm-up track and it started raining. So I just learned that all I can do is the best in that moment. And when I'm running, all I try and focus on is my technique and keeping one foot in front of the net in the right way, and my specific technical cues on the track. And even in just day-to-day life, I think I mentioned earlier, I struggle with the anticipation of races. So a week before a race, I start getting really nervous and start thinking, have I done the right things in training? Am I going to be ready to run at my best? And through all kind of the meditation work and psychology work that I've done, I've just learned to just do one thing at a time. So today, for example, the only thing that's important right now in my life is doing this conversation with you, because I can't control anything else right now, because this is my task in hand. And that's kind of now how I try and live every day. And I think that just has really helped me in track and field, and especially when it comes to racing, all I can do is, there's no point in thinking about the end time of the 200 meters, because until I get to the track, I can't warm up. And then once I warm up, I can then go to the cool room. When I go to the cool room, I can get changed. When I get changed, I can then go onto the track. Then when the starter calls me to my marks, I can make sure I'm in the right position. Then I have to focus on the first step. Then I have to focus on the next 10 meters and 10 meters after that. And I think that's just really helped me to get the best out of myself and actually enjoy the process rather than worrying about the end result.
Sounds like, just almost enjoying the moment that you're in rather than worrying about something a week from now, a day from now, or whatever that looks like.
That's it. And I think, honestly, what happened to Kobe Bryant was so tragic earlier in the year, but I remember he always kind of said that you can have whatever dream you have, it doesn't really matter. Like you may never achieve those dreams, but the actual journey of trying to do it is what makes the person who they are, and is the enjoyable thing. And you may not achieve your dreams, but he said you'll always achieve something greater because you're living in the moment and you're enjoying what you're doing. And I think that's just something that I've always tried to do, but especially since I've been doing all my psychology work and working as a psychologist, that's kind of always been the main focus of my training and the main focus of my day-to-day life, is to just really, you get a lot of people say, trust the process, and it becomes like a hashtag on Twitter or whatever. But for me, it's more about actually just enjoy that process, like actually do the process, not just say I'm going to trust it, actually go through it, do it and enjoy it. You're actually whatever you achieve, you'll enjoy the end result because you've really worked for it and you've really actually done it to achieve it.
Yeah, I think I mean, I've listened to a few different people that have got a similar sentiment to you. I know watching this Michael Jordan documentary, the one thing Phil Jackson has said is you're only like a winner at the moment that you complete that act. So like the week after or the day after, the Chicago Bulls were like, well, we were the world champions then, but now we got to do it all over again type of thing. And I think enjoying that process and that grind, because you're not at the top for very long if you are at all. You never, it's particularly in sport, there's always someone who's going to be coming up after you and whatnot. So you got to enjoy the process, as you said there, of trying to reach that goal. And hopefully there'll be some memorable bits along the way, which I'm sure for you there has been. I guess my last question for you, and something that I ask everyone, which is, who's the best athlete you've competed with or against, or coach you've worked with or against, and why?
The best athlete is obviously Usain Bolt, just because in my opinion he's a top 5 sports person of all time. I put him on a level with Muhammad Ali, Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, Serena Williams. I think they're my top 5 along with Usain Bolt. So in terms of if he is the best athlete I've ever come across or competed against.
Why?
Just his talent at the end of the day. Like he was that good. He transcended the whole sport. He was truly dominant. You get people that are dominant in their sport, but if he took that to another level, he just didn't lose. He was literally unbeatable when he hit 2008 to when he won his last Olympics 2016, and he came third in London at the World Championships. But that's because he was meant to retire after Rio and didn't take that season seriously at all. He just waved into the crowd in all the races, and if he took that season seriously, he would have won the World Championships 2017 as well. But I think, to be honest, I feel like that's a little bit of a cheat answer for me, just because I'm in a sport where I competed against one of the greatest athletes of all time across all sports. So I've changed my answer a little bit, and it's kind of a tie for me between, without being disrespectful to any British athletes as well, any other British athletes, but I'd say Adam Jamili and Nathaniel Mitchell Blake, just because of their competitive mindset. They're not the fastest athletes I've ever raced against, but they're just so competitive, and they're just going to give whatever they have in their day, they're going to get a little bit more out of themselves then. And I mean, Adam could turn up to a track and be in 10-1 shape and run 10-0. Nathaniel could turn up to a track and be in 24-1 shape and run 19-95, because they've just got that ability to get every little bit out of themselves. And I think that's something that I've always tried to learn from them. And thankfully, I think I've got that in me as well, where I go to championships and tend to run personal bests or season's best. So whenever I come up against those two, I just think I've got to be on my game. It doesn't matter what their season's best is. If it's a big race like the British Championships, they're going to be faster than what their season's best suggests.
Perfect. Well, listen, Dan, I appreciate you giving up a lot of your time, and it's nice to obviously catch up and whatnot. And I'm glad to hear that the ankle and the injuries are hopefully on the mend and moving in the right direction. And fingers crossed, we get some sport and some athletics towards the summertime of this year. But I'm sure everyone who listens here will realise what I already knew, which is you're a very personable and humble guy who is very easy to root for. I know that I'm friends with some of the guys from uni, and we all talk about you very fondly in terms of you're a guy who was competing on an international level, and you wouldn't have known. You would have thought you were just a guy that wanted to come down the pub with us type of deal, even though you didn't. I have to say that, but yeah, you're a real nice guy. So I wish you all the best in your endeavours, and I sincerely hope that you do well in Tokyo and the build up to it.
Oh no, thank you. Thank you very much for having me as well.
Thanks for listening to the Sports Initiative podcast with me, Michael Wright. Please remember to follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at the Sports Initiative Podcast, and share this podcast with friends and family. I'll see you next week.